All right, I wanted to start this by showing you actually our results from our Hershey's Kisses lab because we'll talk about this. And we've just been doing all the differences in the sample sizes. So I wanted you to see this. These two posters were drawn to scale. And so you can see the one here on the left, these ones were the ones where our sample size was 100. And so this is some of our intervals. Okay. And then I went and I would take, let me move myself out of the way. So I would take some of these. I took randomly selected 4 other people's and I averaged them so that I could get samples of size 400. And then I made new intervals based on those. And here's what happened. And I've gotten these drawn to scale because I wanted to line up those numbers. And I wanted you to see that, yes, indeed, these intervals that were made from samples of size 400 were indeed about half the size they were half the size exactly of these ones that were samples of size 100. And so remember, that's because in our standard deviation, it's that 1 over, and we'll actually get to it in the notes today. So think about this when we reference that later in the notes. Okay, today we want to talk about some really tedious language between confidence interval, okay, and confidence level. We have got to really understand the difference between those interpretations. And this one is tricky to get correct. So we're going to talk about that. Hopefully I can see if I can't make that make sense for you. All right. So here we have this example of 25 samples. They were all samples of size 100 representing p hat. They are the sample proportion of teenagers who typically go to the movies on Friday night. With a margin of error of 0.10, here are these intervals. Okay, so each of these 25 intervals represent a 95% confidence interval. So we know that in the long run, here's what this confidence level is telling us. In that long run, as you do many, many, many trials and many, many intervals, then we expect approximately 95% of the 95% confidence intervals to contain the true proportion of whatever it is you were looking for. In this case, the true proportion of teenagers who typically go to the movies on Friday night. So if I zoom out here and show you all of these intervals, okay? So this red line, so unbeknownst to us, okay, this red line is unknown to us. But all of these other 25 intervals were made. And if you examine them carefully, all of them except for this one right here contain and captured, this one barely here, down here, the true population P. So indeed, that was 24 out of the 25 that contain the true proportion. So we expect, so 95% confidence level means that about 95% of all of the many, many 95% confidence intervals we will make will contain that true proportion. So that is what confidence level is about. Now, you already know the confidence interval one. Okay, remember on the confidence interval, that's when you actually have numbers and you say, I am 95% confident that the true proportion of teenagers that go to the movies on Friday night is between this number and that number. When you interpret a confidence interval, you have your interval's number in there. When you interpret a confidence level, you don't talk about an individual interval. You just talk about overall, over many, many, many intervals, the proportion of them that you expect to capture the true population amount. Okay. So a couple little songs, which I'm not even really going to play them for you. Smelly Cat has been kind of a favorite one. So smelly cat, how many, and what size interval? Okay, so how many? About 95%. And what size of the 95% confidence intervals? Those have to go together. You can't say 90% of the 98% intervals. Okay, no mix and match here. Okay, how many contain the true P? So that's your confidence level. How many of the many confidence intervals will contain the true proportion or the true parameter? So that's confidence level. This was another one, confidence level, not the interval interpretation. Confidence level, oh, 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 oh. Let's say 95%, 95%. Of all 95%, 95% intervals of confidence, they contain the true parameter. So that's your proportion or your mean parameter of interest. Parameter. Oh, 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 oh. Okay, so then again, you can do whatever numbers. If you have a 98% confidence interval, then you're going to say about, this is how many, 98% of what? Of all the 98% confidence intervals will contain the true parameter of interest. Okay, so now, oh, this is great. So this is 106 intervals. So let's take a look at this. Let me see what I can show you here. My big old face is in the way, so let's move that out of the way. So here is 106 of the 95% confidence intervals that we made with our Hershey's Kisses lab. Okay, so of these 106 confidence intervals we made, so I speculated and I just kind of drew this yellow line in here, which happens to be at 32.5%, by the way. So I drew this yellow line in here, and it's a highlighted one because, technically we don't know. Do you need the keys? So technically we don't know. So if that yellow line is that true proportion of Hershey's Kisses that land on their base, then here's the pink ones. So these pink ones, there's 6 of them, maybe 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so there's 6 of them, and that did not make or contain that amount. So 6 of those 106 intervals that did not capture that yellow line is 6.6%. So therefore, our real world data had 94.4% of our 95% confidence intervals capture that true proportion of Hershey's Kisses that land on their base. It's pretty good. So again, that is the interpretation of confidence level. It's about all the intervals. A level is about a bunch of intervals. Okay. So here we go. So we're going to talk about some very common misinterpretations so that you can weed through all the different ways that things might sound alike. Because I am telling you, the first time that I read through a whole bunch of these little statements, I was like, that sounds good. That sounds good. They all sounded good to me until I learned how to dissect them and learned what to look for to know what the ones that are wrong are saying. Okay? So here we go. So this problem is about livestock that are given a special feed supplement to promote weight gain. And so researchers had a sample of 77 cows, and they gained an average of 56 pounds, and that was a 95% confidence interval. And then we had margin of error of 11. So if you think 56 plus 11 and 56 minus 11. Okay. So to me, it helps to go ahead and write down what the interpretations that we know are. So for the confidence interval, that's our regular conclusion that we make for our intervals. I am 95% confident that the true average amount of weight gain of all such cows, this is not about the cows in the sample, of all such cows, we're inferring about all the cows on this type of new special feed supplement, gain between 45 and 67 pounds. I did give you a little heads up. We get so used to saying the word proportion, and these were actually about average weight gain. So careful on that. Now, confidence level would say if we made a whole bunch of intervals, a whole bunch of people collecting a bunch of data, then approximately 95% of all of those 95% confidence intervals, like this, a whole bunch of intervals, approximately 95% of all of those 95% confidence interval would contain that true average amount of weight gain for all the types of cows on this feed supplement. Notice this. This is a common mistake my students make, and I already kind of mentioned it earlier. This confidence level interpretation does not mention the 45 to 67 because this is just one interval. Confidence level is about many, many, many intervals, what's happening overall. Okay? So when you interpret confidence level, don't put your individual information in there. We're talking about overall. Okay, so let's go through some very common things that get thrown to you in the interpretations. So I'm going to give you the heads up on things to watch for, and then we're going to go look for those as we read through some interpretations. So here we go. All right, first of all, a common thing is they will talk about other samples or other people's p-hats being in the interval that you created. So if they talk about, or X bars, they talk about other sample, in this case, if they talk about other averages, other people's samples being between 45 and 67 pounds, that's out. We do not talk about anybody else's information. An interval is not about somebody else's information being in my interval. For all I know, I could have an outlier. I could have been one of those pink, I could have been this one right here. So certainly, I can't say everybody else's p hats or everybody else's x bars, whatever, being in my interval. No, no, no. That is not what interpretations of intervals are about. Okay, so that's common mistake number one. No other intervals in yours. No. Okay, now, here's the other thing. Probabilities. If they talk about percent chance or they say probability, watch out. So here, watch this. Okay, if they were related to the population proportion being in the interval, they are wrong. If the wording says it's a probability or a chance that the population amount is in the interval, that's wrong because the population amount doesn't move. If you talk about the probability that the population amount is in a location, or I get this too, 95% of the time the population amount is in your interval. No, that says sometimes it's in your interval and sometimes it's not in your interval. So it's changing location. Intervals, the true population amount doesn't change locations. The true population amount doesn't change locations. Okay, so no probabilities. The only time it would be okay is if you say, there's a chance that the interval I'm going to create, there's a chance that my interval will contain it, but not there's a chance that the population amount will be in my interval. See, going one way. It's okay to say there's a chance that my interval will contain it, but not that the chance that it is in my interval. Okay. And I think he even put that as the reflection for today, something along those lines. Okay, last thing, watch out for unit changes. For example, if they said percent of students versus percent of time that the students do something. I can't remember what specific example I had for that, but we'll watch for that as we go along. Okay, so let's go through some problems. Let's read some scenarios and see if you can catch any mistakes. So here we go. Explain what is wrong with these misinterpretations. 95% of the cows studied gained between 45 and 67 pounds. So that's talking about 95% of all of the individual cows are going to be in my interval. No, no. Remember, no, no on anything being in my interval, except for if my interval captured the real amount. No. Intervals are not about the proportion of individual cows that land in my interval. No. Okay. Your interval is about capturing the population average. Also, this seems to be about sample results that we got. Okay. All right, let's do this one. We are 95% confident that a cow fed this supplement will be in our interval. No, same thing as above. We are not interested in other samples or other individual cows being in our interval. We could have one of these, we could have that interval right there. We don't know. Okay? All right, next. Let's see here. All right, the third one is we are 95% confident that the average weight gain among the cows in this study. So it's talking about the average weight gain of the 77 cows in this study was between 45 and 67 pounds. Well, I have to tell you something. I made this interval right here from the 77 cows in that study. So, duh, my X bar is smack dab in the middle. My X bar was 56. So so the average weight gain among the cows in the study is that X bar that we calculated, the interval from. Therefore, of course, the average weight gain among the cows in this study is in our interval. We used that number 56 to make the interval with. Okay, so that was what's wrong with that one. All right, so hopefully, so there's some. Let's keep going. Here's the next one. Here we go. The average weight gain of cows fed this supplement will be between 45 and 67 pounds 95% of the time. 95% of the time. That's saying the true average is sometimes going to be in my interval and sometimes not in my interval. So that's a no-go. 95% of the time made this statement wrong. That says that it implies that the population average of weight gain of this food supplement will sometimes be in one of the intervals and sometimes it'll be somewhere else. That's wrong. The true population parameter does not move around. It stays, it is that amount. All right. If this supplement is tested on another sample, I can already tell what this one's going wrong with. It's about to start talking about other people's sample being in my interval. That's wrong. No. there's a 95% that other sample's average will be in my interval. Nope. Because remember, I could have that outlier interval. No, not about other samples, not about other individuals being in the interval I got. Okay, no. This statement discusses the likelihood of other sample X bars being in our interval. Confidence intervals are about if our interval captures the true population parameter, not the probability of other samples being in there. If we took many, many samples, I'm liking this so far. That starts off sounding like the confidence level. About 95%, oh, they ruined it, of those samples would produce an X bar. Hold on. Wait. Would produce an X bar. Oh, that contains, okay. If they had said 95% of those samples will make an interval that will contain the true P or the true parameter, that'd be good. But they ruined it actually when they did that. If we 95% of those samples would produce an interval that would contain the true P. No, they said 95% of those samples are going to be in my interval. Nope, that's what made it wrong. This statement seems to be on the track of an interpreting confidence level, stating that if we took many samples, 95% is true average, but it mentions 95% of the others X bars will be in our interval. Again, an interval does not contain, it's not about containing other sample results. Okay, so let me just stop right there now that we've done some of those and let you read the others yourself and think about them. Okay, and then we'll see what you came up with on that. And I'm going to post a separate video going through the rest of the answers here, starting at number 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop right there. So you have some time to try some of these interpretations on your own. Takes a lot of brain power on that. All right, good luck to you.